Thanks. Thanks for the reminder. I was trying to figure out earlier how to do that trick where Danielle just clicks a button and it puts up the minutes. Not sure if Brett's online and he knows how to do that easily.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have a go. Here we go. Take a vote, yeah?
Yes, that
Let me
would
try.
be.
Is that working? Yes. Should be, hopefully. Yep, I'm getting votes.
Oh, brilliant.
So we're tracking along. We've got 20 out of 29 so far. Maybe give it another few seconds. All right. I think that's looking like as far as we're going to get. So I have 12 affirmative, no negatives, and 14 abstentions.
Perfect. Thank you very much. The motion is approved. Minutes are approved. Thanks heaps for that, Brett. I was a bit stuck on
No worries.
that. Cool. So we'll jump into the ballot for comment update. So from AU Core and the AU base tickets that we moved out of scope have all been updated, I believe, in AU base. So everything in AU base is up to date and all the changes are in. From an AU Core perspective, we've completed triage for, I think, the 147 tickets. And now 95% of those have been applied. And I think this is up from actually 96 now. This has been updated, the slides. So that's up from 93%, I think, in the last technical design group. And hopefully, if we get through some of the change requests today, we can bump that up even further. So I think there's only a few more to go. I think the next resolution snapshot was planned for the 25th of June. And I think that's also reliant on an NCTS terminology release. So we won't be publishing before the 25th, but possibly on the same day. I think it's a plan there. Cool. And that brings us to a testing update. So Michael, is it okay if I ask you to provide this update? I'm happy to click through
Yeah, no,
for you.
no, I'm happy to do it. So, yeah, we launched the AU core testing phase last week. There was a launch briefing that was held on Friday. I just put there's a QR code there, but I've also just put in the chat a link to our AU core testing Confluence page. On the bottom of that page, there is a recording of that launch briefing as well. So if you weren't able to attend, you can watch it there. There's also the slide pack as well. And so we've opened an expression of interest for people who want to participate in testing. And so far we've had 22 submissions. I know these numbers down the bottom don't add up, but that's because some products are actually providing multiple roles. 14 responders, 11 requesters, and one profile only testing have shown interest. So I might just jump to the next slide, because this is the important bit. So we've got some upcoming AU core testing events. So we've got one in Brisbane on 27th of June, Sydney 15th of July, and then Melbourne on the 1st of August. So these are limited space, face-to-face events held in each of those places. So they're a place where you can safely collaborate, fail, learn, and help us test and provide feedback to AU core. So we really want as many people as possible with these, but they are limited space. So we want to make sure you get your tickets if you want to attend, and you do that by completing this expression of interest form. So in there, we'll just ask you what product you want to test, and it can be a proof of concept. It doesn't have to be a fully polished, nice working product. It can be anything you want to bring along to test. But this just gives us an indication of what you're bringing along. It also is where you provide your indication of which events you'd like to attend. So once you complete one of those, we'll come back to you and confirm your attendance to those events and issue you the tickets to those events. So it's important you get that in soon, so that we can get your place at one of these events. And if you have already done your EOI, we will have sent you an email back with some information there. Just make sure you RSVP back so you can tell us who's attending, and we can get you on the list there. There's also, once you've done your EOY, we've got on the main Confluence page a place where we're putting logos of organisations that are participating in testing. So send us back your logo as well, and we'll get them up on that page so everyone can see who's participating and contributing to testing. So that's pretty much the update. Just get in, complete one of these forms so we can come to one of these events.
Awesome. Thanks, heaps, Michael. So what this leads us to, I don't think Douchey is online.
I'm gonna take that one for Douchey.
Oh, okay, great.
Landon, yeah, cool.
Oh, nice, perfect. Thanks.
Cool. So we might, step through and just talk about what this item's about. So as part of writing fire implementation guides, there is a maturity model level set against content in the specification. So this is a system where we kind of rate the maturity of the content, and there's some formalization in terms of criteria for meeting any particular level. So it's our intent to look at AU Core and move from a draft level for the artifacts level 0, which is effectively we managed to publish something at all, to FMM1, which is kind of the lowest step to move everything up. So just to so basically there is a sequence of levels. Thanks, Lana. That's perfect. The a sequence of levels that you can move through. This slide just shows what we're sort of talking about. Level 0 is really like what we've done already. We've got a draft. We've had a draft specification. We've even balloted it to sort of ensure that it's got good coverage and is well understood by everyone in the group. We then we've done some connectathon work with that material, and we've also got the ability to got the ability to use the spec effectively, and we've had some good review through the ballot process. So FMM1 is kind of the first step to saying the group is happy that this content is complete enough for people really to test and use in anger, in the sense that we've covered the things we're going to cover for now, and we think it's good to go with, and we've got some level of quality assurance applied to the spec from a technical perspective. And so part of what we're kind of talking about today is to actually get the TDG to look at that QA content and reconcile any sort of warnings and issues there that need to be understood before the TDG can approve a step to FMM1. So I might go to the next slide, Landon. So primarily, we've gone through a process where we've already kind of had feedback, we've had agreements, we've had discussions, we've had votes internally, and we've run a ballot. So we're kind of, I think, happy with the current content in terms of what it is and the scope, and it's the group understands what that it makes sense in terms of the content, and there is a need now for a QA report to be looked at. So this is basically to check if any of the publishing in the current version of our spec has errors or warnings, that we understand what they are, where they're coming from, and if there's any kind of actions we can take to correct them. but also to highlight, I think it's also really to note things that are not our problem, in the sense that they belong to another work group, or belong to the publishing tools as an issue, and we basically just understand all the warnings and errors that we have left in our specification. So I might just go into the next one, Landon. Thank you. So the proposal today is to move everything, all the artifacts we have in our IG up to FMM1. They've all been looked at through this process, and basically there's all the green ones there have no issues or warnings recorded against them in the publishing spec, and have gone through our kind of draft process and our connected time process and our balloting process. So they're pretty clean in terms of saying, hey, if happy, we can just move those up to FMM1. And the orange ones there are some issues that are in our QA report that probably need some explanation, and I think for AU Core organization, there's actually a correction that needs to be made that we can talk about and understand what needs to happen there. So I think today we'll aim to get to the point where we can propose that we accept moving up to FMM1. Now, just to frame this FMM1 discussion, really this is the bottom level of kind of maturity. The FMM's levels range from 1 through 5 that have some kind of criteria in terms of being acceptable, and then we move to normative status. So through this process, there will be ample opportunity to feed back into the spec, and changes can still happen, and things like that. So we're not really, this is not locking down anything. This is really just saying we think this is adequate, really, for people to seriously use, and we've done enough due diligence that we think it's fine to use beyond just publishing it. So I might go into the next one. Thanks, Landon. So just to go through the issues that do remain in our report, we do have our actor definitions. There's some reported issues against those. So the errors listed there. Now, this one is actually an explainable error. This has been confirmed also by Graham as being a publishing issue. So it's on the backlog of things to fix for the IG publisher. So this is pretty much a technical issue with some value sets being used by the IG publisher that have some mismatch between the R4 version and R5 versions, and that's causing this error to come up as being an issue in our content, as we are using the R5 definitions, which is a valid thing to do in our IG publishing as part of the tooling set, but it's actually reporting as an error because that's just an issue for the publisher. That's been understood by Graham and is on the backlog for the IG publisher to address, and it's also an existing. This issue is also present in other implementation guides internationally, and has already been accepted by those groups as being an acceptable error. So as a group, I might just present all of these and see if there's any objections to any of these, and then maybe take it as a block to try and pass everything at once rather than do everything one by one. So that's essentially an explainable publisher error. I might go into the next one, Landon. Okay, this one probably needs some understanding. We might break this one out individually, but There's currently a technical correction that normally co-chairs would approve these technical corrections, and they would go through unseen by the TDG. So effectively, this was a incorrect expression during one of the tests on the organization terminology use. So there's a fix already being developed by Adushi and has been sort of tested to pass, but this warning does affect our FMM acceptance because it is a warning that turned out to be actually a problem. So we have a fix for it. So I would like to propose that we conditionally approve this as part of the FMM1 assessment because it does need to be applied. So I would just say there's a fix for this. We expect to apply it, and approving that change as a group would be part of it, and also that on that fix, we expect the warning to be no longer present, and we would like to conditionally approve this AU core organization artifact also up to FMM1. So that's like a chain of approval there. So basically approving the fix, approving the FMM1 level once that warning disappears, because that's the only warning against that artifact. I might just go through these, and then I might try and maybe break these down into some votes. Might keep going to the next one, Landon.
I think that may be it, actually.
That's it. Yeah, cool. So that's all we have to address as such. There are a number of other QA. There's a bunch of other QA content in there that might be relevant for discussion, but no particular warnings or issues on that. I see Heath.
Yeah, I'm just asking about there's some other warnings below the main table about a sex assigned at birth.
Yes. Yeah, actually I should go through. I'll get up. Actually, I might take over the presentation, Landon.
That's fine. Yeah.
Cool. Let me just get up the right. Yeah, we should probably definitely go through these. There's a bunch of other things which are QA issues.
They all got, I think they're more rendering issues, aren't they?
Yeah, I think it's worth going through this in detail. So this is the QA report. Hopefully you can see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So so this is what we're using as the basis of these warnings. So it summarizes all the artifacts and any issues with them. So we can see basically there's a report. I'll just go through and find all the warnings and stuff. So the first set, like these are publishing warnings. This noting, yeah, this is for the sex assigned at birth extension. So there's a bunch of issues with links that can't be resolved, and this is actually coming through based on that the published artifact is actually in the based on the extensions pack that we use to get the basic definition for this. It is publishing out content that from the FireR5 data types, which is causing this problem because there's a bunch of data types that don't exist in R4. So all these checks have come through, and yeah, so that is something that is already noted by Graham again as an IG publisher problem, and there's actually if we actually check the sex assigned at birth actual artifact, there's no technical problem with the artifact. It's usable and is valid.
So I
but
guess
this
the
is,
main question is, are we changing the FMM on this particular extension, or is it just the main resources that we're...
No, I propose everything. Yeah, all our
Is it in your
profiles.
list? In your
That's a good
PowerPoint slide?
question, actually. I don't think it was on my PowerPoint slide.
Because your PowerPoint slide was just
click.
a summary, effectively. But what you are saying is everything is going to
related,
be upgraded
exactly.
to FMM1, including all the subtypes of observation.
Correct. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So like going through this, like this is actually a rendering problem. Effectively, it's rendering with when it's saying that there's actually any data type available. It's actually expanding that out to include R5 data types. So there's invalid links there that are not correct. But when you go to use it, typically that will still just be operating in the R4 space, and that will work correctly in terms of validation and things like that. So but it has been put on the backlog too as an issue for it's been accepted as an issue on the IG publisher. So effectively it's known. Some of the other things, there's a bunch of informational things here which going through them, these are actually expected. This is notable. There's a warning on examples, all our observation examples that are generally there's a best practice recommendation that which is the IG publisher just asserting this, that it's part of the observation definition, is that all observations should have a performer, but that's really just a warning, and we have intentionally, as part of the balloting process, said we don't want to include performer as part of our spec. So again, these are all coming through as warnings, but we totally expect this because we've actually decided to not have performer in our must supports, and our examples also don't have them, which is why this is triggering. So there's a set of those. We have there's some warnings about multiple matching. This is actually coming through from AU base definitions. So the fact you can have when we do have profiles specified in AU base, we also have a generic option as well to just so we say that you can include an Australian address, but we also let you include any address in this case, right? So any address will always be met by any example. So and it may also match AU addresses as well. So what we're getting is it's actually matching two slices technically, but it's really expected that will happen, and it comes through as a warning, just in case that was not expected in terms of that validation. So it is validating against both of these in this case, because that meets both, but one of them is really just saying a valid address at all. Other stuff, there's some things like around use of standardized coding for units. We're using an annotation form of that in an example. These are, but it's basically just saying this is how the UCOM codes work. So it's more just maybe something to think about if you are expecting something to behave differently. These annotations, in this case, tablet annotation, it doesn't actually mean anything in terms of actual processing of the units. If you're using sort of units conversion or anything like that, so this is just indicating, hey, maybe you should think about this, but it's actually legal and also not an actual issue. So it's another example. Multiple profiles again. There's a whole set of these kind of multiple profile matches where we've got the generic profile as being one of the options. So wherever that happens, we'll get a multiple match.
So Brett, these are all examples that have got these warnings. Are they considered, like when we're talking about no warnings, no errors for FMM1?
Yeah.
Do we have to consider warnings and errors in examples?
I don't know. I don't believe so, because we're not moving. Examples don't have an FMM level. They're effectively informative.
Really, we need to be focusing on those errors and that are actually related to the structure definitions.
Yeah. It's good to know though, because it might indicate problems. Probably this one's notable. There's some. We're looking at. This is effectively an AU base problem, where we're essentially AU patient profile. It's because it's to do with the sex and gender extension, however, and some of the constraints on that. That's still under investigation, but I would propose that in fact that is not an issue for AU Core. It's actually an AU base problem. If it is a problem, and I'm not sure, and we're not sure it is a problem. We're investigating whether it's a tooling issue or a terminology availability problem. So I think that this one, like, we would probably just set aside as being not in scope. It's not something that can be addressed by the AU Core spec. So it's I think at worst it's going to get pushed off to the firework group anyway, where our outputs from this discussion would go anyway. Landon, is it?
Yeah, I had a quick question. Can some of these errors that are informational and sort of we agree that they're not relevant just be suppressed?
It is, yes, it is. These are suppressible. At the moment, we have opted not to suppress anything, just because we're really getting a handle on what errors are there. Some of them, it is possible to annotate them, which I think might be our preference now, is to actually annotate the warnings and errors as we want to, so, which effectively says we understand what this error means. So a lot of these are actually expected based on the definitions, and some of them are more advisories that maybe are highlighting some of our choices don't match what the current validator thinks is the right behavior. So again, that's kind of, some of this is arguable in terms of they're probably not problems in a lot of cases. They're more just detail, but it is possible to annotate some of this. I think there's some examples later, but there's even things like we're getting information like saying content doesn't match a slice at all, and that's because, like in AU Core, we've only identified certain identifiers as being relevant, and so when it doesn't match any of those ones, there's extra identifiers in there. They end up coming through as these kind of informational warnings, not warnings, but these are just info kind of entries. So basically you can see, like, these are all kind of the same. Multiple matches, observations should have performer. Here's one. This is the one we looked at before for the actors, and you can see this is added an editor's comment, so it's understood, and some references there to the discussion that has noted this is an issue. This is one way we can address kind of
This is
some
the
of these.
annotation you were talking about.
Yeah, so this is an annotation. So rather than just suppressing the warning entirely, we leave the warning in but have a comment against it. I think we're probably heading. This is kind of a newer feature with in terms of being able to do this. I think it's probably a better form to do that. So try and explain everything rather than just suppressing things. Yeah, because I think suppressing can cause some issues down the track, and it's quite hard to maintain because if the errors change, the suppression needs to change as well. So this is actually a good way to actually make sure we're dealing with all the problems. Yeah, so this is existing stuff. This one on organization is actually the one that needs the change. So this is yeah, this is that conditional one where we have a fix, we have a change to apply, and that will make that error, that warning go away. Yeah, so that was just a fire path expression problem. So just technical, the intent is still the same. So there's no sort of logical difference, but just a technical problem implementing it. Yeah, these are all just informational. Informational ones we don't need to justify. So there's all of that. And I think, yeah, that's just the suppression details. So we're down, yeah, that's just summarizing it different ways. Yeah, so that's really it. So the ones I talked to are the actual warnings of interest. Probably these general linkage ones have all been assessed as being IG publisher problems. These warnings on observation are expected because we don't include performer as part of our scope of interest at the moment. These multiple matches are essentially AU base issues anyway, but we also expect that based on the fact that you can have a generic profile. This UCOM code again is that would be any example that hit that would be would that used annotation alone would cause that issue. So in fact, I think if you use annotation at all in the UCOM codes, which is a valid thing to do, that would you get that issue. So I think that's really the main thing. So I don't know if does anyone have any particular further questions? Because I would just probably maybe break this into two parts and probably propose that we vote on the I might, Landon, would you mind going back to the slides? Yeah,
sure.
Thanks. Oh, Marvin, I see you have a question. I didn't see your hand there.
I guess this is probably a more general, broader question because, you know, I suspect there are a number of people on the call who've never been through this process, probably are unsure as to, okay, what should we accept, what shouldn't we accept, what's good, what's not good. You know, I guess we need some guidance to say, okay, here's where we currently are at. We think that what we're putting forward is something that is okay to move to FMM1, given these criteria, to give people a sense of confidence. Because you know, if we have that mandate that is 0 errors, 0 warnings, then okay, so we've got there are some warnings, and we understand why there are some, because you know, the publisher causes some problems and so on. But I guess it's just giving people on the call a little bit of confidence that okay, if we do vote yes, that we're doing the right thing. Yeah,
exactly, Marvin. It's a lot of this is pretty technical analysis of what the issues are, and primarily it's trying to. I think part of this discussion is to go through the process of looking at these and making that you know, because there is an assertion that we understand where these warnings are coming from, and they're either justifiable in the sense that they are issues with the generation of the content, or expected because that's the way we've designed it, and or need to be referred out to other groups because they're not something that is actually in the scope of AU Core's sort of ability to deal with. Heath, you were next.
Yeah, so the other issue is sort of AU Core requester and AU actor and AU Core requester responder actor. They're new artifacts that we've added in since the comment, ballot for comment. And also this sex at birth extension is new, I think. So my thinking is that we're asking the TDG to vote on something that perhaps we haven't actually fully understood yet with those three in particular. Everything else has been, the TDG in particular has been through a long process of agreeing, ability to comment, gone through the ballot response process, and I think we're all feeling pretty comfortable with those artifacts. But those new artifacts, I feel are not ready to go to FMM1. So that's kind of my commentary before going to a vote. So as far as trying to split this out and making it easy to get a vote across the line, my thoughts would be pretty much what's on the screen, which does not include AU Core assigned at birth, sex assigned at birth, and exclude the actors.
Yes, cool.
So, I mean, I'm not even willing to motion that. If you would like someone to motion, is that we accept FMM1 for those that are on the screen. Except for the actors.
I'll let Vince say his piece, and then we'll I think we'll entertain motions after that. Yeah, Vince.
Thanks, Brett. I did join a bit late, so you may have already covered this. What is the urgency around going to FMM1? Is there a particular reason why we have to vote on this today rather than once you've annotated warnings and the issues with AU Core have been addressed?
I think there was just an intent to progress based on basically we have gone through our draft for comment. There has been usage, connectathon work. So I think and I take Heath's point about the new artifacts. So I think there's probably a set that we could say we are happy with and have no warnings. And I think primarily I would like to probably propose that we at least move those to FMM1 because they're essentially have no warnings and have had use in to the point that they've been balloted as well, which is actually not even a requirement for FMM1. Basically, the TDG needs to accept that they're okay. So it wasn't. It's not so much a rush. It's more just trying to progress that, particularly with an aim to head towards having a standard for trial use next year and being able to get to, like, ideally we'd get to FMM2 for the trial use out of some of these artifacts, at least at FMM2, so that we could move forward.
But effectively, we're preparing to publish for a ballot in August. So this is really the preparation for that ballot. And we're about to do a preview build of this for these testing events, Vince. So I think without being actively involved in decision making, it kind of that would be my perception of what we're trying to achieve in this here is to get the TDG approval so that we can actually publish this preview in advance of the final ballot in August.
And I think those testing events are actually, because ideally what we would take to testing events is that FMM1, because we're just basically saying the committee thinks this is okay to use. It's basically FMM1, and and ideally testing events would have. I mean, people have used the draft versions. I'm not saying they haven't, but FMM1 is really an assertion that the committee says that they're ready to use.
I mean, my concern is that for an e-requesting specification, the AU core requester actor is pretty fundamental. And without it actually being, agreed, balloted, etc., it seems premature to me to take this forward.
I think you're
can
requesting
slice it into stuff that's not dependent on that.
Yeah,
and I'm happy to look at that. But this is supposed to be an e-requesting specification.
Oh, this is just AU core. So e-requesting needs to come back with its own actors and its own obligations against them. If they decide to use AU core, they can AU core requester, but they don't need to. So I think it's I think that needs to play out, I think, in the e-requesting space. So so I think and obviously but FMM1 too is really more just under our current scope of activity. We think this is okay to use for trialing, really. It's even probably pre-trial. Actually, it's more that we think it's implementable is probably the level we're aiming at. And ideally we would have an FMM1 for the testing events, because that would, that's just it's very hard to say, hey, you should be testing unless we think these artifacts are actually usable. And in the sense that we think they're complete enough to be used. But it's also then the testing events and other connectathon kind of activity is also part of the evidence basis of getting to FMM2. So that's actually explicit sort of things that need to be assessed as part of the FMM2 discussion. So primarily it's just a progression to go from we've got a draft to we have artifacts that we think are usable. There's still opportunity to feed back into that because there's going to be a ballot process and stuff against this already, and ability to raise issues, and that's kind of just then more developing it further for FMM2. Ideally some things will move to FMM2 at least next year as part of that ballot process, but that really depends on the testing and the usage kind of reports we're getting back in terms of people implementing. But even based on the draft implementation, I think we've seen people implement against the spec already. So I think it's basically just saying all of these artifacts are implementable. Michael?
Yes, sorry, I don't want to take up any more time, but I know we want to get to a vote. I just wanted to counter Heath's concern about the request, the actors. Given that we know what the issue is with there, I think they're still suitable for voting for FMM1, given they're just the actor definitions and they're a known issue with that. But we can slice and dice this voting now, I think, so we can move forward.
Yeah. So that's good.
Do we want to potentially move to a vote then to accept the artifacts with 0 errors and 0 warnings? As Heath mentioned before, do we want to remove the new artifacts? Was that sex assigned at birth?
So I think for this discussion, what the slide on screen, if we say all of the green artifacts, and Steph has kindly pointed out we're missing AU core procedure, which should be on that list. So I think the motion would be to accept. We can list them properly in the motion, but all of these green ones plus AU core procedure, as they have no warnings and have been through a draft for comment and resolution and TDG work. So I would motion that.
So you're excluding organisation as part of this motion.
Yeah, yeah, I'm excluding organisation and the actors' resources.
Okay, so procedure in,
Procedure, yes,
and
missing.
the extension is out.
Yeah, the extension. Yeah, just what's on the screen. Yep. Is
But
it there?
also all of the you've got all the observations individually there as well. So that's okay. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll
cool.
second.
Thanks, Steve.
Cool. Great.
I've done your work, Chair.
Okay, cool. So we have a second. So what we might do then is if people can put their hands up to vote negatively on this proposal to elevate these artifacts to FFN1, and we'll do a count. So if you can do that now, please raise your hand. Give it a few more moments. Great. I have not seen any actually. So what we might do now is get those that would prefer to abstain to raise your hands using the Zoom reaction, please. We'll make a tally of those. It's all coming in now. Looks like got 16, I believe. One double hand.
Yeah, I can see 16.
Great. Okay, cool. So therefore that motion.
And I'll just get so that's with have we got any AI minute takers?
39 people at least on the call. There may be
yes.
duplicates.
I believe there is one AI note taker. I saw
There's
that.
one AI note taker, so technically 37 because Landon can't write. Yeah. So yeah. So that's so we had how many approval? Already.
So 17 minus
37. So
11.
Yes.
can't add up.
No. 21.
21.
21.
There we go.
Yeah. 21. Beautiful.
Awesome. Great. So that motion has passed. So I think then, Brett, you wanted to possibly do one more for this one to accept these.
Yeah, actually, I might do the organization one because I would like to get that in if possible, but that is obviously a conditional approval because we require a change and a warning to disappear. So I would propose that we accept FMM1 based on the technical change being made and the warning not being present anymore. Because otherwise,
second that.
Yeah. Thanks, Heath.
Okay, great. So for this one, can we also do the same thing, please? Everyone please that wants to vote negatively, please raise their hands in the Zoom reactions. Give it a few more moments. So we
agree with Angus's comment in the chat. I don't think we should actually count positive just based on people not voting at all, because there might be people who've dropped off for a period of time who are still present on the call. So I don't want to be over technical about this, but I think it would be wiser if we, just so it doesn't challenge in the future.
Okay, so would that mean having an actual positive vote? Potentially?
Yeah, we could do that.
Correct.
Let's
I
do
think that is the only safe way of doing it.
Yeah. Sorry, I made that comment. I didn't feel bad about the last vote. I just many times I've been in this and felt that if you're not paying attention, you're not really listening, and you're counted as a positive vote. And I just don't think that's very wise. I think we should have, especially for the positive, like you could count the people who don't vote as abstaining, but you shouldn't count them as positive or negative.
So that voting form that you put up for the minutes. Is that something that we
Yeah,
can
we can do that.
reuse?
Yeah, we can. I can
I think
do.
that's a better forum.
It looks okay. Do you want to restart this item?
let's
Just
do
do
that
it
again.
for the. Okay.
I think we
Yeah.
should do it for the first one as well.
All right. So should we go back to the start? Let's do.
Yep.
So the initial proposal, which was moved and seconded, was to include the items that are in green plus AU core procedure, which is not present on this picture. So I'll put up the poll. It'll say approval of minutes, but it will do the job. Hang on, let me just let me see if I can start this again. Oh, I can't start it. Hang on. Relaunch. There we go. Hey, there we go. So you'll be able to vote now. So we've got 24 so far out of 37, 25. Moving up.
So that vote you just put up then was for the minutes of the meeting. Is that?
Yeah, I know. That's the only one I've got.
Yeah.
That's yeah, we'll just use that.
But we're hijacking it for this.
We're hijacking
Oh,
yeah.
well, I
to
just
take a official poll. Yeah,
well,
yeah.
I read the question and answered it as appropriate.
Yeah.
So are you suggesting we take one off abstain and put it as positive?
Yes.
I'm also a positive, but I can't vote because I'm running the poll. So I think we've got all the respondents we're going to get. So I have on this count 15 affirmative, 17 abstentions.
Plus 2 minus
and
1.
no negatives. And no negatives. Oh yeah. Oh, sorry. Yes, sorry. I got to adjust for Angus. Let's do adjust. Angus, you're a positive.
I am a positive, yes, and I voted.
Yeah, cool.
I abstained in that poll you just put up.
Yeah. So I have 16 affirmatives, 17 abstentions, and no negatives. For the official result.
Great.
Cool.
So that motion is passed. We'll move back to
that one. Yep. So
yeah.
So the proposal here was to conditionally accept this based on applying the change and the warning no longer being present. So we've moved and seconded that, and I will relaunch a poll. This is not about the minutes. I'm going to prepare a poll that says a vote at the top instead of the minutes. That's my plan.
Sorry, what is this poll for? What is the actual question?
So the question is that we accept the AU core organisation FMM level to level 1 conditionally based on the correction of this technical warning that is already prepared but has not been applied. So it requires the warning to be corrected, basically. But it's a known problem.
The profile's right, but the validator's wrong. Is that what we're saying?
Technically the fire path expression is incorrect and will fail until it is correct. So just letting people go here. Go last chances. Okay, so for this one we have 14 affirmative, 1 negative, and 15 abstentions.
Great. That motion is passed.
Cool.
So
and for the others, I mean, I would actually like to move these are accepted, but I take Heath's point that we haven't had the same perhaps review as the other artifacts.
If it wasn't for that known issue, that would be green though.
It would. Oh, yeah. So it's more, I think, acceptability in terms of people think the content is acceptable because it's met the warning criteria. In terms of we understand that warning.
Millie, you have a
Yeah.
question?
Yeah, Millie.
Yeah, just on Heath's point on this, my team was actually debating some confusion around these actors yesterday.
Cool.
So seconding that, yes, I wouldn't feel comfortable voting on them yet because I don't quite understand.
Cool. Well, yeah, I think I hear that. So I don't know.
The other thing is, like, from an implementation perspective, that you can't implement this resource. Well, you don't implement this resource as such. So it's kind of a definitional, logical thing.
Yeah.
So when you're implementing a system, you actually don't implement the resource, whereas a capability statement, you do implement the capability statement to some extent, or at least reference it.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily reference an actor. So it's almost a moot point, but it's an interesting conceptual thing.
Yeah. Okay. So
it helps from the IG, I guess. Like I guess it's referenced in the IG.
Yeah, and it's also, I think, part of it was depending on your system, you may implement. I guess, yeah, this is part of the whole concept, right? So it's it's a good question.
But I agree with Heath that it's you don't implement an actor, right? So you don't implement that profile.
Yeah.
The thing that my team were debating yesterday was around, I guess, responsibilities as a responder if we were to implement AU Core, and I guess conformance, how this fits into conformance. Don't know what forum would be best for answering those questions. I was thinking of just throwing some questions in the chat file.
Yeah, because like whilst you say don't implement it, if you're implementing a conformance framework, you kind of do implement it because you need to use that definition as part of your part of your assessment, or even testing. If you're thinking about it as a testing artifact, if you identify as a requester, then that does define your testing criteria. So it is important people accept it as a definition.
So I mean, as a server, you are required to implement a capability statement. There is some words in the IG at the moment that says that to state conformance to AU Core, you specify in your server's capability statement that you initiate the AU Core responder capability statement. There is no reference to the actor.
Actor itself.
You're referencing the capability statement. The obligations is where there is a reference back to the actor. And I put this up as a diagram a couple of meetings ago. There's kind of this loop of relationships. And I guess the question then is, because obligation is pointing to actor, are we actually implementing the actor through that relationship? So yeah, it's an interesting one.
I mean, it would be like, I guess you'd have to accept the definition of the actor, right? And like that's probably the question. It's
well, there's more
primarily
than that. I mean, there are shells in the definition of the actor, right? You shall implement the capability statement, for example. You shall implement missing data, suppressed data, and shall populate all must support. So there are statements in there, but
Yeah.
as far as
I
implementing stuff, it's
Yeah.
not a
I think
directly related implementation.
Yeah. Go on, Michael.
Is there anything preventing us from voting? Is there a reason not to vote?
We're having discussion.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, true. No, it's a fair question because like the question is like obviously anyone can make a motion, but the I think there's some fair points in this discussion as to acceptability. So I mean, if someone wants to call to approve these, you know, I think that's fine, but it's obviously we'll take a vote and see where we land.
My question was just what would change apart from these errors going away by a tooling fix. What would change the vote on this? What would we do in the coming weeks to change the outcome?
It comes back to the definition of FMM1. It is the working group has indicated that they consider the artifact substantially complete and ready for implementation. So there's two things there for me that we agree that they are complete and we agree that they're ready for implementation. Now, the second one is the one that I'm saying, well, there's nothing really to implement. The first one is, have we actually discussed and agree through some kind of process that those definitions make sense? And I don't think that, although I have presented them at a couple of forums, I don't think that we've had any agreement on those definitions. They haven't gone to a public comment. We haven't actively engaged getting feedback on them. So personally, I don't think
the vote for
they
get included.
They didn't exist in the ballot for comment. They were added after the ballot for comment. From memory.
Yeah.
No, but the TDG did review them and vote for them to go in.
Did they?
Was part of the obligation.
I think we told them that they now exist.
Okay. Fair comment.
Yeah. So I think, like you prefer it went through. Yeah, I think Michael's question is fair though. What will we do beyond what we've done so far? And is it just because like basically people have been acting in those roles as part of Connectathon work already. So it's like I get, and there is always opportunity. This will go to ballot, in August, and again next year. So it's so there's opportunity as well to feed back into that. So it's more, I think, just is the work group happy to accept that people will implement against this, as it is. Yep.
Really.
If we do go to a vote on this in terms of scope, this is just clarifying. This is very specifically the actors themselves and not the capability statements that are linked to them.
We just voted for the capability statements because they were green.
Yeah, true. Okay, yep.
Yeah, and I would say obviously, like if there's issues, if you see issues or find issues, and yet they can be raised always. Anyway, FMM1 doesn't say we've got everything right. FMM1 just says it's okay that people go and implement against this, and so it's more just So I think there's a question, Heath. I guess if you say these aren't implemented at all, then it's really just an errors question, right? It's
based on that, Brett, I'd like to mention that we do accept these as FMM1 and see if we get any.
Please do. Yeah, feel free to vote. However,
okay,
obviously, always.
Okay, cool.
So,
we have a motion. Do we have anyone that wants to second that motion to go to a vote?
I'll second it, Steffi.
Okay, great.
I can run the poll, yeah.
Yep. Thanks, Brett.
Let's do that.
I can't see the poll, but thanks heaps
It's
for running.
coming up. Here we go. It's coming up. All right. So we've just got 27, 28. Guess we'll take a few more moments. I think we've reached our full quota actually. So I have 9 affirmatives, 3 negatives, and 21 abstentions.
Great.
And in fact, everyone voted. So that's
good. Great. So the motion has
yeah, so that's possible. But and I think people that have concerns, I would say happily raise, like definitely ballot or raise issues against them. But like obviously, it's more aimed at specific issues, right? So we need to kind of, you know, and the thing is too, I think if there are issues, like we will want to correct them, but obviously this is really just a stepping stone in terms of general acceptability for now.
Yeah,
Cool.
I agree with that too. This goes through ballot. So
Yeah.
if you've got any issues, absolutely raise them.
Yeah. If you go to use it and it doesn't make sense, yeah, go for it. That's what we want. So it's you know, but I think we think it's okay to use is the short answer. All right.
We didn't explicitly state it, but was there any conditionality on this being fixed, or were we basically accepting it as is with the
we're
error?
accepting this one. Yeah, we're accepting this one as is because it's a noted IG publisher issue that it will be corrected. So it may well be corrected before we publish. It's basically known. It's not causing a problem. It's not part of the implementation usage anyway. Directly, it's more of a it's to help service the IG publisher to publish. Cool. I note I've used up most of the time, so I better let Landon get on to a couple of items that need to be done. Yep.
all good. Thanks heaps, Brett. So that covers FFM1. So we're now on to, I think there's 6 change requests that we have 15 minutes to get through. So we'll kick off on the allergy intolerance guidance clarification. So there was some valid feedback that it wasn't necessarily clear what we had with regards to the verification status. I think it said here, where actually is it? I think this was it here. Allergy intolerance verification status is unconfirmed, where a sending system does not clearly have this element, or confirmed depending on the level of certainty. And it was just mentioned that it was not clear what this actually means. This went back and there was a disposition that we had to provide greater guidance across this, and that this would be worked on and brought back to the group for feedback and approval prior to the August ballot. And that's essentially what this ticket is. It's just a feedback from the ballot. So where we have landed with this, with a bit of back and forth, is an update to clarify that particular guidance, which essentially has a few points here, and I'll just highlight the main ones. So the verification status elements use the indicated certainty associated with propensity and potential risk of reaction to the identified substance, including pharmaceutical product. What's noted here is it says shall be provided unless the clinical status is entered in error. So that's some information guidance there. And this is applicable for both allergies or intolerances and negated allergy intolerances. So it's a little bit clearer and less confusing around the usage, and doesn't really state now what the usage of the confirmed and unconfirmed is. It's just all silent on that. And it also provides guidance on refuted, or basically mentions that the AU court currently does not provide guidance around refuted, but it does encourage the usage of negation to communicate a patient does not have an allergy or a class of allergies. So that's the updated guidance that we're coming back to the group to see what we think and if that is okay to put through and if that's further clarification on what we previously had. Liam, you have a question.
Yeah, hi, thanks. I was just wondering if we could go a step further, and given that first dot point, would it be appropriate to put like an invariant on the verification status to say that like if that clinical status is entered in error, then is anything other than entered in error, that it's mandatory?
We could have that extra
Like,
clarification.
is it? Yeah, just so a machine processable kind of. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. That's
Could I suggest we just raise that as another ticket as an enhancement?
Raise it
Because
as
I don't think, yeah.
Yep, I can do that.
I think there's already a invariant for that.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
It's inherited.
Oh, nice. Is that
Okay, very good. I'll go on mute again then.
Well done, you solved it. Oh yes, it is. Yeah, it's in the base.
cool. Was there any other questions around this?
The term negated. Where are we negating it?
Through coded elements. So there's negated like terminology entries versus, so it's just the encouragement to potentially use those. So it's still just all code. So there's no like extensions or anything. It's just the actual terminology, encouraging the usage of an allergy intolerance or a negated coded allergy intolerance.
So maybe it's just my heritage, but the term negation kind of suggests that there is another element where I indicate there's a negation rather than it being part of the code.
Yeah, but it's part of the allergy intolerance definition to have negation codes in that value set, right? That isn't that. That's,
correct. Yes.
Yeah.
I do see where he's coming from. It does go from an implementation point of view that there's going to be some negation flag or something you would set. But I think there's like non-known.
Even if it just negation codes or something or other, like just that
Yeah,
extra
I
one
would
word
agree.
makes
Yeah.
it more sense.
I would agree with. Yeah,
I
would
think the
agree with
first
that.
dot point's okay because you're talking about them as negated allergies, so it's implicit maybe. But the second one, even if you just say a use of a negated code,
Yep, that makes
or a
sense.
negation code, negated code,
Jillian,
or even negated allergy or intolerance again. Spell it out.
Okay, so dimension code, that's a good point. Jillian, did you have a...
Yeah, I'm actually really confused as to the meaning of negated. Can you just sort of, elaborate on that for me?
Yes, I think in the coding system, I think there's certain codes that have like no known allergy to like latex, for example. So have we got an example? I think there might be an example in here, actually. Let me see if I can find one. Like just give me 1 second.
Yeah, because I think we just need to be clear on because this first point talks about uses the term negated, and then the second term talks about refuted. I guess those are two terms that aren't really used in the allergy world. I guess we talk about allergy being confirmed or confirmed allergic or not, or confirmed not allergic, or allergy unknown or no known allergies.
Correct. So negated, for example, I think there's a code which is like, no known latex.
Okay.
So that would be no known latex allergy. So that's a negated code. Or you could do something like no known allergy. that could also be a negated code.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, so it's so basically that gets applied as the allergy intolerance code.
So on the inverse, the actual
indicating
one.
it directly, yeah.
Yeah, so it could just be latex or the negated, known latex allergy. But and we kind of yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, so I was just going to say the refuted flag is like negating the concept in that code, and so it's refuting the existence of an allergy, and so I think that may be problematic in terms of understanding, but at the moment we remain silent on that. But basically we're saying we think you should use the negation codes that have been put into the value set as the way to do it. Yep.
And we kind of fall silent on confirmed, non-confirmed, because it is, I think, well defined in the core spec. Daniel, did you have a question or your hand raised?
Yeah, just to clarify, negated does not mean no known allergy of a given type. It means that it's usually used for conditions rather than allergies. So I haven't struck it with allergies before, but if it's refuted, it means that it is not the case. Whereas if it's not known to be the case, that's a separate message that's being carried. So I think it's really important. With allergies, it does get really complex around the various ways this is treated, and it's really important to get this right.
Yeah, can I just, and like we have been in the National Allergy Council, we're working on a project at the moment in standardizing. We're getting agreement across anyone working or allergists and anyone else that manages allergies to sort of have a sort of a agreement on allergy terms. So we've actually, as of this week, we have an updated list of terms that these health professionals that manage allergies would like to use, and we've been communicating that with people in the fire team. So I guess what I want to raise is, perhaps, in the near future, we're going to be working towards integrating these standard terms, such as perhaps replacing some of these terms such as refuted, and then using terms such as confirmed not allergic, or etc. I guess that's coming, I guess. And is now the time to raise this, or is there scope in the future to update these terms that we're throwing around?
So the problem is refuted is actually defined. So we can't change that term. What that second statement is basically saying is we're recommending that you don't use it. You should actually use the SNOMED codes or whatever explicit things to say effectively that clinical statement that there is no known allergy of a certain type, rather than using refuted. That's how I'm interpreting that second one.
Yes, I don't think it's expected. Refuted is going to be widely used with interoperability, I think, was the assumption. Stephen Chu, did you have a question?
No, I don't have a question. I just have a comment regarding if I caught the conversation correctly, there was a suggestion about an invariant regarding the relationship between verification status and clinical status. The International HL7 Patient Care Work Group, we debated over the invariant quite a lot, and we realized that there are use cases where you have secondhand information in which the clinical status is not known, and the value set at the moment doesn't have a include and value called unknown, and so therefore to force people to enter clinical status value if the verification status is not entered in error, is problematic. So I can't remember whether it happens in R5, but I am looking at R6. If you look at R6 verification status, the data element, the invariance has actually been removed. So I just want to bring it to the attention of the discussion if we are still on the path of putting in the invariant.
Okay, thanks, Stephen. Steph, you had a comment or question.
Yeah, I have to put it in the chat as well. I'd consider breaking down the second bullet point into two, because the first sentence talks about the refuted value, which is relevant to the verification status element. And the second sentence is about the negation of allergies, which is related to AllergyIntolerance.code rather than the verification status element.
Okay, so just separate those into two bullet points.
Yep.
Well, that I
Then-
agree. I think the second part of that sentence is kind of, you know, I don't know how to say it, but if it's almost the follow-on recommendation. We're not saying you can't use it, but we recommend you use this instead.
So the first sentence, is that talking about the refuted code as part of verification status? Or are we talking?
Basically, we're saying we're not making a recommendation you don't use it at the moment, but we suggest you don't. And instead use the negation codes.
Correct. That's
but the negation codes is an assertion that there is not an allergy. Say you've received an allergy intolerance record from another system, and the patient carer then refutes that allergy. So the verification status
that's not
changes.
my understanding of refuted. Refuted means that it's been clinically proven that they don't have that allergy. That's how I interpret it.
Yeah.
And basically we're not yet saying it, but we're kind of saying it, that rather than saying latex refuted, so the code of latex and then the code of refuted, we're saying use the code no known latex allergy. Confirmed.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah,
It can
so-
be used in that instance, but the definition of the refuted code in the value set indicates that it can be used, that refuted code can be used if the allergy or intolerance has been disputed as well as disproven.
Certainty.
It can be used. Mm-hmm.
I think that's important to raise because there's a whole process around removing an allergy from someone's record. They need to go through.
But we don't control. Yeah, we're not really. We're just exchanging. We're not setting the rules as to what goes in the record. Yeah.
So, and again, being a status of sorts, it's kind of saying, okay, it starts off being unconfirmed. So we think they might have this allergy, but then we've tested them and now we've proven that it's not. And we're recording that as a proper assertion that they are not. And however you've got there, but over time, as you're saying, you're not removing that allergy record because they no longer have it. You're actually making a positive assertion that they don't have that allergy. And the recommendation is to use the code that they don't have that allergy rather than using the term refuted. But having looked through SNOMED, there's not that many codes or negated allergies. There's basically only the two that I put in there that have any kind of explicitity or specificity, other than things like no known food allergy, no known
common ones,
environmental allergy, etc. So
Okay, that's a good point. I think Heather mentioned that in the chat as well, a similar comment. Roma, did you have a question or comment?
Comment. I guess the no known thing is also possibly difficult for refinements. So I think that you are allergic to some class of food, but it turns out you're allergic to a subclass of those foods. And it starts, and then you may even confirm the subclass and have unconfirmed in other parts. And so it feels like there's a lot of subtlety to allergies that maybe trying to write it into like basically 3 statuses may make it difficult to communicate for the clinicians and the systems.
So do we just remove the second sentence of that second paragraph?
I agree.
Yes, I think so. I think that's where we have landed with the discussion points.
I think Daniel also has a point. He's has his hand up for a while.
Yeah, just to clarify, because I hear this in our conversation, negation is not the same as no known existence of the allergy. That's a separate logical bucket. So you've got no known allergy, you've got an assertion of an allergy, and then you've got a negation of the allergy. They're 3 separate things. It's important that we understand that. Secondly, and I think this is the point that I want to make, interoperability is about exchange of data. I foresee it being very difficult if we use a code to assert an allergy, and then separately we have an assertion of a negation of the allergy in a different code. It's going to be very difficult to electronically rationalize those 2 contradictions. Whereas if we have that assertion within the actual allergy itself, it's easier to do it as an update rather than storing 2 contradictory codes in the allergy bucket in 2 separate resources in FHIR. It's an opinion, but that's my opinion from trying to resolve these things in health information exchanges in the past.
Yes, thank you, Daniel. Daniel.
Would you entertain the motion, Landon?
Yeah, we can try a motion. So I think where we have landed, given the lack of negation codes to probably cater for the second point, we could maintain the first point with the addition that we mentioned negated codes to make it clear there. This is applicable for both allergies, intolerances, and negated allergy codes or intolerances or something along those lines, to the addition of the word codes. So to remove the second bullet point, add codes to the first, would that be something that someone would want to motion? Potentially?
Oh, state that again, Landon.
So to remove the second bullet point and to mention negated codes, so it's clear that we're referring to negated codes and not some other flag within FHIR.
I don't know. I'd like to see if we can get some input from the clinical and the working group teams who are working on allergy intolerance guidance, because I think if we're going to do interoperability, then we want to do things that everybody understands. And I think at the moment, people don't understand the statuses that we have on a technical level. And I don't know that they know how to map that to what they do in real life. So I think we probably need to do a little piece to just understand what the industry is currently doing and see if we can tie those 2 things up and make it clearer.
So just as a ballot resolution, this is like our last ballot resolution item. Yeah, so the answer will be we either are going to push this off into the future or we're going to make a change at this point because basically it needs to be resolved. So if we decide that, and pushing it to the future means it stays the same.
So it would stay the same as the previous slide, which wasn't clear with the unconfirmed and confirmed.
Yeah. So basically, this is like, is there a change to be made, or are we letting it stay the same? We can say that we don't know, but we have to decide what to do with the actual next publication. Yeah.
I don't think we should make a change from something that is not clear to something else that is not clear.
Yeah.
Landon, is it helpful to refer to the branch where we have the 5 bullet points on?
Yes. So if everyone can see my screen here, I may try to zoom in a little bit. Does that? There we go. So these are the current bullet points here. And the one that was confusing was this statement, the very first one primarily. And the refutation one as well. Like refutation is not expected to be handled. So it sort of addresses these two. These are the existing ones which would remain. The first bullet point and the fourth bullet point.
Sorry, I'm still confused by the first one because are we saying that it will show up as that the allergy is unconfirmed when it doesn't have that element? Because then I'm confused because then I thought when I looked at your second slide that wasn't the case, but now I'm looking at this again. So yeah, I'm very confused.
So this is the original. This is what we currently have.
Yeah.
There was a valid comment that this was kind of confusing, as you just mentioned. So state as unconfirmed. Yeah. So the bullet. So this was an attempt to create some clarity, just around that, or remove some of the comments around, or to be silent somewhat across unconfirmed and confirmed. But I think the original attempt of this, I think, was to imply that we wanted unconfirmed as a predominant usage where you clearly don't have confirmed. I think that was the original intention of this.
So as a default, so that's how I interpret this.
Yes.
If you don't have a field on your screen to give you the option to say it's unconfirmed or confirmed or refuted, then the default for something that just simply has a single text box to enter in an allergy will have a default value of unconfirmed because it's, I think, almost mandatory. So, all right.
Yeah, so I've got an issue with that, I guess, because it could be confirmed by an allergist.
But if the system doesn't support the allergist to enter it in as confirmed, then this is giving guidance to implementers to specify unconfirmed if there is no field in the database. Or
because you don't know, Heath, right? Because it's never been entered.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the certainty, effectively, it's uncertain. So because it hasn't been explicitly stated in the record, so in that, as a result, it's unconfirmed. I think that's what the stop point is trying to say.
Yes.
It's like a default value for a mandatory field.
Correct. And this somewhat would remove that and would kind of fall silent on that point. Except it would mention, gonna go back, it will mention entered an error.
But to be honest, I'm not sure that first stop point helps describe the default nature.
Yeah, so I think we probably need to say let's not change it, given that we've gone over time and we're probably not going to resolve it right now.
Yep, that sounds good. Let's.
Could we vote to not change it, just to complete the resolution?
That
I
is
think so it basically,
idea.
I guess, is this a future consideration? Because we would definitely come back to this, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I think
Yeah,
I think Danielle was talking about adding like that mandatory default item, or not mandatory default, but rewording that in a like the missing data elements in a different way. So that sounds perfect, Brett. That way we can move forward with it. So let's
so I would move I would move that we say this issue is for future consideration at this time.
Perfect. Does anyone like to second?
I'll second it, Marvin.
Thank you, Marvin. Is it okay if you put through that vote, please, Brett?
Okay. Just got 23 left on the call, and we're up to 18. Few more seconds. That will do. I have last minute changes. Okay, I have 14 affirmative, 1 negative, and 8 abstentions.
Awesome. That motion has
14,
passed.
1, and 14, 1, and 8. Yeah, cool.
Perfect.
All right.
Great.
Thanks, Landon.
So we have 20 minutes remaining. Those first two took up a bit of time, so we'll try to move through these a little quicker. This one should be a little bit easier because I think we've already started discussing this in a previous technical design group. So what this, actually, I probably should have full screen for this, but
actually, you said 20
Landon,
minutes later.
Yeah, technically we were over. Yeah,
we were over already by 10 minutes. It was 90 minutes for the call.
Oh, we are? Okay, so we completely missed it. I blew out completely. Okay.
Yeah.
We've already got to go. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Landon. Thanks though. I just want to say thanks to everyone, because that last item was very important to get across, because that was our ballot resolution item that we really needed to deal with. Yep. So that was good.
But I think it's important that we do get those that contributed to that discussion to be actively involved in trying to rework that in the future.
Yeah. I would really encourage that.
Perhaps put those people can put their hand up or something or other that we can record that we would.
I think Julian was one of the ones who I think it would be really great from the Allergy Council who could give some input, and Daniel as well. Would be really good to get your input.
Yes.
I'm very happy as well, and we have a allergy working group as well that we've connect with and provide. Very interested in this work, so happy to be further involved in this.
And using those terms that you said that you're basically agreeing on, as much as we're constrained around the term refuted, at least our narrative can be in the terms that you prefer.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right.
That's great. And I think the next meeting will probably have some of these same items that we didn't get through today.
Yeah, excellent.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, everybody. Sorry for going over.
Thanks, Landon.
Thanks, Landon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.